Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello. Welcome, everybody. How are we doing today, guys?
We're here.
Hello. That your first hello was weird. You kind of threw me off there. I'm so used to your hellos the way are. That was
kind of a feeble one.
I don't know. It was more like hello. I think it was kind of creepy.
Yeah, that's creepy is kind of what we go for here, you know?
Yeah. Well, you're succeeding.
It's in our episode description, yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I think you're the awake one in our group today, George.
Yeah. Like Al looks like I mean
keep it clean.
I mean, Al, you look like, you know, I remember that episode of Seinfeld when they're like, his face looks like an old catcher's mitt.
Yeah.
Your face does not look like an old catcher's mitt, but you look like you are feeling a little fatigue.
Yeah. I've been offshore for 3 days in a row, and that's all I've been doing offshore. I would come back and sleep, get up, and go out again. Come back, sleep, and there were a few beers in there post trip. So
I believe that.
Yeah, some of that
story.
stuff.
Yeah,
but it's been a lot of offshore. 3 days is kind of a lot, actually.
Yeah.
But I was, perky right till the end. Then once it all ended, I was just dead.
Well, you'd never know it. You're like a spring beauty blooming after a long, cold winter.
Yeah, spring beauty.
It's a very nice flower.
Nobody's ever called me that. Mm-hmm. Spring beauty.
Well, yeah.
Wow.
Here we are. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying to speaking of spring, convince Molly that because her birthday's at the start of fall, it's also at the start of spring. It just depends on her viewpoint,
Yeah.
And happy birthday,
a brand
Molly.
New discovery for me. Thank you. Yeah, my birthday was yesterday, so a lot of times it's the first day of fall, but I can take a trip and celebrate spring for my birthday if I want to.
Yeah.
Gonna have to keep that in mind.
Have you, I used to know this, but it does change between 21st and 22nd, right? Depending on the year, because of exactly where the sun position is or something like that, right?
Do you remember the 21st of September? Sorry.
Oh my God. Let me do the background singing here.
Yeah.
He is awake.
Fire. Earth, wind, and fire. Yeah.
A lot of wind I hear there.
I'm still going for creepy over here.
Yes. Yeah. So back to Molly here. So do you remember how it works? Why it shifts around, or
it is on leap years, right? What year is it? 2024.
Mm-hmm. It's leap
think.
Year. Yeah, it's always election years. Same year.
Is it that, or I thought it was like exactly sort of the position of the sun
Next year,
shift.
It's also on the 22nd. So,
oh yeah,
I suppose. Well, actually, and it can be the 23rd. Apparently.
Oh wow.
Maybe I split it right in the middle. It sounds like
so the equinox.
Spot, but
whenever the sun is right over the equator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how it goes? Yeah. Then, boom. That's the start or end of spring, fall, wherever you are. Huh. Cool. Well, happy birthday yesterday anyways.
Yes, happy birthday, Molly.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and you got COVID for your birthday as well.
I did. I got a nice
Yay.
Yeah.
What a special present.
Yep. I had COVID. We have a new puppy. And Jimmy was already planning on being out of town this week, so I'd been home by myself for the weekend, and it was actually okay because I just moseyed around outside, and that was the best case for potty training, and slowly chipped away at getting things done. So all in all, it's not the worst thing.
Thomas looks pretty absurdly cute.
Yeah, he's ridiculously cute. His personality is kind of ridiculously cute too. I was just saying before we started recording, we thought, we have 2 dogs. They're both pretty old. They're big dogs. They've got some years left in them, but they're slowing down. So we thought if we ever found the right time to get a new dog, or we saw a dog we really liked, that we would get it. And just stumbled across this one last week, and he was with a litter. It says he's a border collie mix, and I really don't know what he is. I would believe he's got some border collie in him, but who knows what else. But yeah, we went and saw him at a foster home, and man, he was cute. So here he is.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
That a guy.
Figuring out how to be a farm dog.
Yeah. And how's he getting along with his older siblings?
He wants to play with them constantly, and they don't really play. They don't really do tug of war or anything. So they've worked that out. Finn, our Australian Shepherd mix, is like his buddy, and he's just constantly trying to get Finn to wrestle him and jumping on him. And then Ledoux, my Doberman German Shepherd mix, is like the grandpa now. He's just watching over everything. And Thomas will curl up and sleep with him, but he just looks to Ledoux solemnly for advice. So there's pretty intense social dynamics happening, but it's been fun to watch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun to see the pics. I look forward to meeting Thomas.
Yeah, he's getting to do a little bit of birding. He's been in the woods with me some this week, so we'll get him used to watching the birds a little more calmly and then start taking him around. I do have a dog-friendly place booked for Cape May, so maybe he'll make it over there.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, we do. It's coming up.
Yeah. That sounds good. I have a question for you guys. Is there... I had a revelation the other day. Do you guys use your pinky finger for anything?
When I drink tea.
That's true. I've seen you do that. Yeah.
I mean, you use it all the time.
Well, yeah, but I sort of meant like to the exclusion of others.
I don't think that's the way it's meant to be used.
I agree. But I've realized there's one thing that I do where I only use my pinky finger and nothing else.
Got to do with your nose?
No?
Okay.
I suppose, actually, that's a second thing. That's a very good point, Alvaro. Yeah. Yeah. Damn it. Always got to foil me. Yeah, well, the first is scraping out the leftover hummus from the hummus container. You don't get that? You don't get those like hummus containers where you
That's what pita bread is for.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we don't really use that. We sometimes have laffa, but often we have crackers or carrots.
Something hard.
Yeah, where that's not an option.
Is this another food you're anti? Are you anti-pita bread?
I'm not anti-pita, but
what's going on?
I would say pita is not as exciting to me as other forms of bread. Yeah.
I use a rubber spatula if I'm at the end of hummus or like pesto jar. I'll eat it like ice cream.
Maybe
it's just that my pinky is particularly good for this.
So I'm thinking, okay, your index finger has more dexterity. I think if I was going to use a finger to take stuff out of a container, I'd use sort of my index finger. And that's kind of what you usually lick to figure out the direction of the wind. So that's kind of already...
Which you do so routinely, yes.
Well, I do, actually. Yeah. So, Huh.
Yeah, well, it dawned on me this morning as I was kind of trying to polish off, let no hummus go wasted, that this was something that... I was like, I think this is the only thing that I use my pinky for that I don't like, to the exclusion of all other fingers.
I would think that if you asked our listeners, most of them would not use their pinky finger for that task. I think it's an unusual and interesting.
Yeah. Well,
use of the
Unique,
pinky
yeah.
finger.
yeah,
Unique.
I solicit feedback. I would be interested to hear from some of our listeners what they think. While we're on the subject of feedback, I think it is well worth mentioning that we got some nice feedback, Al, from your query during one of our recent episodes about like what is the oldest picture, oldest media. I think the oldest picture is what you said in eBird. Do you remember we were talking about that?
Yep.
And we were kind of
Because
like,
of the dodo.
yeah, exactly. The dodo came up. And we had two listeners, Tim Healy and Josh Malbin, both, at least those two, came up with the same checklist from New Zealand, from the Mackenzie District County of Canterbury, New Zealand, from the spot of Raincliffe, which is, I think, on the Otago Peninsula. No, not really, actually. It's kind of in the middle of the South Island. And this was for a checklist from January 1st of 1909. It says the checklist is submitted for posterity to record the historic photograph of a wild juvenile laughing owl with rodent at its nest in a cavity under a limestone boulder. This species is now extinct, with the last confirmed record in 1914. Approximate location is Raincliffe Station, the Opihi River, South Canterbury. Approximate date is the year 1909. No known copyright restrictions. Photographed by Cuthbert and Oliver Parr. Uploaded by Oscar Thomas. But indeed, it's quite a good image of this laughing owl holding a rat,
Yeah.
or at least a rodent. I think it's a rat. And
that would be all those mammals were introduced, right? So
yeah.
I was thinking that, yeah. Is it holding its demise right there?
Yeah, you wonder. And I love also, this was a Ninox, right? This was in the genus Ninox.
Yeah.
And that one of the local names for it is the jackass. So I want to thank both Josh Malbin and Tim Healy for sending us this photo of a jackass. It's and I do think it's interesting that the oldest known photo in eBird is of a jackass. That in and of itself is impressive.
That it is.
I never heard of this owl before.
Laughing owl, white-faced owl,
Yeah.
Ninox albifacies.
So this is the genus with like boobucks, right? So
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. I call it Ninox, but I don't know.
That's not as fun. Yeah, that's not as fun.
Ninox.
That's it's akin to saying pica rather than pica. It's just
that's different because this is Latin, right? See, I always feel like the long sounds don't sound Latin-y to me.
I think it's a matter of ethics, really.
Yeah, I do feel like we would really, really do well to have like a time with the Pope and a bunch of cardinals.
Bring back some ancient Roman soldiers.
Don't get me wrong, yeah, but it's just about the Latin. Get them their Latin, give them a bunch of names, and they'd be go, well, certainly it would be Ninox, yes, no, not Ninox, no. And another guy would be like, I disagree with you, Pope. You can't disagree with the Pope. Okay, anyway. We would have this great conversation about Latin names, and and then we'd say, "Did you know there's one called the Cardinal?" Oh, what? Cardinales.
No, I can't remember. Molly, have we reached out to the Pope? Have we tried? Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think that we've sent a guest invite yet. So
yeah. I think Al's right. Given that he works with cardinals and probably friars and monks, and these are all occur.
Prothenotaries.
Prothenotaries, yeah. Like it's probably high time we got the Pope.
High time, yeah, and. The Pope came up yesterday on our boat trip that I said I wish we had like a boat like the Pope Mobile. Remember the Pope Mobile back in Pope John Paul, whatever?
He came to Philly, remember?
Yeah, and he had it. Yeah, is that where it comes from? Like he had this thing, like car with like a just glass, all around it.
Freaking adorable. Yeah, it was the most adorable thing I've ever seen in my entire life. A little Pope running down the street in this little sort of glass mobile. I've never seen anything.
It's like one of those snow dome things, but it had a real Pope inside it and wheels on the bottom.
I remember I was like, I was standing.
How many people have we offended right now at this point? I don't know.
We're doing our best. Yeah. I remember just being next to this little girl, and she was like, and like she saw him go by in the Pope mobile, and she just goes, "There he goes." And she said it like, zoom. Yeah, like she just thought it was like, because everyone was like, so like, wow, the Pope mobiles, man, that is just a cute little thing right there. Yeah.
Yeah, we need a boat mobile, like just so you could see up above, because I missed one of the good birds because there's like a roof on in this stupid boat,
Mm-hmm.
and I want glass up there. I want to see. There you go.
Yeah. Well, I tell you, the Pope, nobody is really eager for him to come back to Philly. I shouldn't say nobody. I'm sure there's vast numbers, untolds,
different Pope.
Yeah, maybe different Pope, but they shut down the whole city. Like, there was like this whole grid system. All the restaurants like were forced to stay open basically, and then nobody came to them. And it was the only time in my life that I can remember roaming around Center City, Philadelphia, and there was no traffic whatsoever. Like there was no car traffic. Everybody was in the streets, like playing volleyball and like skateboarding around. And like that part was kind of cool, but, everybody rented out their homes for Airbnbs and everything. But the Pope's visit didn't really bring the untold riches to many people that they expected. It was kind of a frustrating thing. But the Pope mobile was cute as hell. I mean, let's be honest.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, so was this owl. It's also, I'll link the photo.
Oh, yeah, it's about an owl. Sorry.
But I wanted to point out the illustration that's in Birds of the World, too. So I'll link that because it is really cool. It's like, it's a really unique posture. And I thought it was awesome.
Yeah. The photo really is... It brings you back to, like, you feel like you're in a different era looking at that photo, right? It's like,
yeah,
you feel like you're looking at 1901, or it's just crazy to think about what isn't here that even just a short time ago was here. 1909 was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so far as we can tell, that is the oldest media in eBird, and thanks to Tim and to Josh for passing that along. So far as we can tell, that is the oldest one. Pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
George had guessed that it was going to be one of the extinct big woodpeckers, and I thought probably not. I thought I kind of saw why, but I thought probably not. But then it is another extinct bird, which is interesting.
I wouldn't say that's what I thought it was. It was the only suggestion that I had coming to mind.
I get that those are like, notable photographs, so there might be an extra effort to put them into eBird, which is probably the case here too.
I think on the whole, if you went outside of eBird in the early photography days when it was really tough to do, it probably would be something that was easy to capture, to take a picture of like a mallard or a goose or a swan, chicken, and I think we would count domestics for this one.
Swan would be a very good guess, I feel like.
Yeah.
Big old mute swan somewhere, even behind, a photo of other of people, maybe.
Yeah.
I have started reading my first Amy Tan book. I'm reading the Joy Luck Club.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm like halfway through it. And it's fiction, but, based on like, historical, cultural things and that sort of thing. And it's talking about this woman in her childhood out with her family on a boat in China. And there's like a service where kids come up on a raft, and I think it's a cormorant that they have, and they in the book it's got something tied around its neck, and it's on like a leash, so it dives and it comes up with fish, but it can't swallow them because it's got this anchor around its neck. So then they pull the fish out and it dives again, and they collect fish and sell them to the folks on the boats. And I didn't think about talking about that on this podcast, so I haven't looked that up to fact check it. But it was pretty fascinating to read.
It's true.
I assumed it was.
Yeah, no, I've read about it, and some people still do it. Actually, there's sort of it's an ancient craft of fishing with cormorant, and it's a great cormorant they use. And I think it was widespread. Yeah. I think it was also done in Japan and other places in Asia, but not anywhere else. Although there's cormorants all over the world, nobody else kind of figured this out, I don't think.
It seems like it's pretty effective. I mean,
yeah,
the cormorant's probably not too happy about it,
Yeah, would think not. Quick search says China, Japan, Greece, North Macedonia.
Greece?
England, and France.
Oh, wow. So it was... Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll look into that more.
Sometimes known as duck fishing.
Huh. I'd be, after my weekend out at sea, I think I'd train a parasitic Jaeger to bring back fish for me, because pretty efficient little stealers.
Those things.
Can you get it to steal overhead so you just catch the fish when they fall?
Yeah. Just I'd have to have a big long string on it.
Awesome. Yeah.
Super long string.
Gosh,
it says, Alan, that they've used darters and hingas in some places.
Oh, really? But they'd make a hole through the fish. Well, you wouldn't want that, would you?
Yeah. Plus, you'd have to manage them. Man, I remember watching my dad extract common loon from some that had gotten stuck in some fishing net once, and that was sort of a scary thing, because they're stabbers. I'd be hesitant to get too close to an anhinga. You'd have to really wrangle the neck.
Yep.
Right.
I think we've talked about that with, herons and that kind of thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I know what bird, if you could actually truly domesticate, this isn't really domesticate, it's almost like, it's a little nastier than that, right? To put a string on the neck of a cormorant. What other one could we use in order to bring out something from the environment that's useful to us? It's a kind of interesting question.
Yes.
What would it be? Maybe like a surf scooter, bring up some mussels or something, some clams.
Probably not a lammergeier, or a turkey vulture.
No. None of those.
I just heard on a podcast today that we humans have not domesticated any new animals for over 4,000 years. I have not fact-checked this yet, but I found it an interesting idea.
I would say you'd have to define what domesticate means.
Yeah.
Because, the famous experiment on the foxes, where they were trying to make the foxes easier to handle, right, for furs, essentially became a domestication of the foxes, right? They changed their behavior and so forth. That was only 40 years ago.
I don't know. There are nice videos of it. I remember watching that in grade school science class. Their coats start changing color really rapidly, and like you said, phenotypic differences started.
And they start wagging their tails and stuff.
Yeah.
But that was not what they wanted to do.
And has that even held up? Is there any place they're still domesticating foxes?
Well, they didn't want to domesticate it. They wanted to make them less aggressive, easier to handle for the fur industry. So as they bred them to be more kind, gentle with people, they changed their body chemistry and they started becoming different looking, and they became useless for the fur industry because you suddenly had patchy, white and dark patches, and they essentially became dog looking, with floppy ears and
sad eyes.
And juvenile behaviors that were retained to the adulthood. So in a sense, you kind of created a new dog, you kind of domesticated it, but then it became useless for the fur industry. So it kind of stopped. And there's videos of it though, as a thing about genetics and how it's not just genes, but it's changing the hormonal nature of the animals that is part of the key to domestication. So
in cattle and a lot of forms of livestock, there are like attempts to quantify some of these traits that are heritable. So disposition being one of them. So they have like on their pedigrees, they have these disposition ratings. And then they also have things like marbling and weaning weight and that sort of thing too. And when they started really pushing to have this sort of number and that has some value 50 years ago or so, they basically just started assigning them and like increasing the accuracy with each generation so that any individual could take that sort of, you know, I don't know if I'd say scientific, but at least logic based approach that would like become more accurate over time. But of course, that's something that was done for thousands and thousands of years without it being on paper. So cattle are already way different than their ancestors would have been.
Yeah.
But
That almost sounds like beer, like ordering a beer today, you know, where you have to look at the IBU number and the other, you know, you just sort of go, give me a 70, 80, 24 or something. And then they'll go, here, this is the closest we have.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Not that different. Yeah, it was fascinating to look at.
And it almost erases individual variation, right? Because, of course, each individual cattle has a personality, but they will, on the whole, have breed characteristics, right?
Yeah, well, breed characteristics, and then definitely individuals and definitely family lines had similar dispositions. You know, you could see that when we were growing up and breeding cattle, but all breeds are so crossbred now because cattle are basically, you know, mixed all over the world. Even 100 years ago or less than that, there were all these different breeds that were developed in all these different places that were adapted for different needs, and they didn't spread very far. But now you artificially breed cattle and a lot of livestock, so it's a giant melting pot.
I got a question though. Could you breed a dog that looks like a panda? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yes.
Some would say yes.
Or at least paint one to look like a panda.
My goodness. Yeah, that was a headline. Our friend Julian Huff posted, I saw, it said, zoo admits that their pandas are painted dogs after backlash from visitors. Can you imagine like taking like your kid, nephew, being like, yeah, we're going to go see the giant pandas, you know, that's going to be really fun. That's something, you know, we're really looking forward to seeing, and like getting there and seeing they were chow chows were the dogs. Imagine seeing like the chow painted and like, you'd be looking around like, is anybody else here seeing what I'm seeing? Like, what the hell is this?
You know what's sad about this? Was, I guess, some little zoo in a small city in China somewhere, right? And
the Shanwei Zoo.
And there's a couple of levels of sadness. First of all, the panda is one of the China's most impressive, iconic, and I think there's a level of culturally important animal. So that's right. A no. Don't paint dogs like panda. Mm-hmm. And B, you're a zoo. You probably can get like a black bear somewhere and paint that. I mean, you paint that thing. You don't paint a stupid dog. It's like, you might get away with the bear, right? You go. It's a little weird, but yeah. Okay.
And also, I feel like in some other countries you could get away with it more easily. But like, if any, you know, residents of a country should know what a panda looks like, you'd think it would be the Chinese. But
gosh,
yeah.
Well, you've seen the things about sun bears where people question if they're dogs or if they're humans in costumes. That's what it is, not dogs, right? So bears are already questionable in these institutions.
It's true.
The general public. This doesn't help that argument much.
Yeah, well, I'm never gonna go to that zoo ever again. I'm gonna boycott that zoo, and I think all of us should.
Boy, that's quite a sacrifice on your part, Al.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Done with that zoo there.
Yeah. Wow. I'm reading further, and if I'm reading this correctly, it appears there was another zoo that did the same thing. the Taizhou Zoo in Jiangsu province. So, Al, I think you're going to have to call on all of us to boycott another zoo.
Yeah. You know what would be more painful to us who are doing these boycotts is to boycott any product or anything where they dub a red-tailed hawk onto the image of a bald eagle.
Now that would be a challenge.
Because that's about the same level of, something trying to lie to us.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. It's not right.
Yeah.
That much I know.
That's not right. Just have that little chicken sound that the bald eagle makes and be happy with it.
Yeah, it is sort of a sad sound.
It's happier than the hawk, though.
Yeah, I think that's probably true. I would be inclined to agree with that.
Yeah. No. At least they don't sound like a great blue heron.
That's true.
Nasty sounding.
That's the one they call on the eastern shore of Maryland and Virginia. They call him Old Cranky.
Old Cranky.
Yeah. That and 40 quarts of soup, because that's what they'll leave behind on your dock or your boat if you're not paying attention.
Huh.
Mm-hmm. Learn that one the hard way.
40 quarts of soup. What kind of soup do people eat?
Not that kind. Yeah.
I had multiple people this weekend say they listened to this podcast and actually like it. Can you believe it? It's just like, I was like,
it's
thank
nice
you.
when we get that second part.
Yeah. Thank you. And a few, well, at least two of the people said they enjoyed when we just talk about random stuff.
Well, I think we're achieving that today.
Because there's always something in there. So I guess some level of information. I don't know. But there was also talk of creating a T-shirt that said, "Life List, we're on a tangent."
I like that.
Yeah. That sounds good.
We need to make that happen. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah. How about what you've been doing, right? You guys, George, you've been out and about, right?
Yes. Yeah. Just back from Brazil like 3 days ago. Got back and from doing a nice 10-day swing through the Pantanal, followed by a few days birding in the Atlantic forest. And I must say, it was a truly fabulous trip. I have never been to Brazil before, have been hearing about how unique and awesome it is from a variety of different friends who've really spent, significant time there. And man, it was a lot of fun. It was really, really great.
The Spanish is really hard to understand there.
Second that, good sir.
Can't understand any of that Spanish they speak.
It's quite a beautiful language. I think like it's easy on the ears, the Portuguese they speak down in Brazil. I really like it. But yeah, I found myself by the end, like routinely anybody asked me anything, I responded in Spanish. And luckily for me, they fortunately mostly knew what I was talking about. And I did get better with time, starting to use some Portuguese. Learned some a little bit here and there, but
do you think it's almost harder to have a language that's sort of similar to Spanish that you're trying to speak rather than something totally different?
I feel like it is a bit. I mean, in a way, I have a structure. Like I can make parallels between verbs and articles and subjects and stuff. Like I can see how it fits together, but I so strongly default to Spanish that it's difficult for me to not be saying gracias instead of obrigado and, just stuff like that all the time.
Yep.
At least you can read it all, though. So that makes it easy. I mean, you can read most of it. At least I can. I can read Portuguese, understand it.
It was that part I found fun, was trying to figure out what some words meant. Because I like words and languages anyway, and the X is used so much in Portuguese to create a sound that is really a little bit different than you see in Spanish much. So I mean, that was fun, learning a little bit of Portuguese. The Pantanal, for anybody that hasn't been, is the world's largest tropical wetland. I think the Okavango is like the only larger wetland in the world, if I remember correctly. And it is a seasonal floodplain, basically, where it starts to dry up. The dry season begins like in June and goes through till kind of early October. And it gets progressively drier as time goes on, from June onward till October. So we were here, early mid-September, and often that is a good time, really any time starting in July, August, September. But the idea is that stuff really starts to concentrate around the watering holes. This year marked the most severe drought that anybody that I talked to had ever seen there. And there were a lot of fires, and there was smoke and haze a lot of the time. And we could look at the maps and see where the fires were. And there were times where we could see that only, 12 miles away from us was a large, severe fire. And there was one place where it was really, really smoky. And that was really sobering, because you realize that what's happening down there is that it's basically desertification, right? As a lot of the Amazonian gets cut over, a lot of that humidity would have ended up down in the Pantanal eventually, a lot from the Altiplano as well. And basically it's getting drier and drier all the time down there. And the fires this year are unlike anything anybody really has ever seen. And there's a political component to it as well that is disturbing, where apparently some of the powerful political people were encouraging people to go out and set fires, which is disturbing. So that was sobering that was going on. But even in spite of all of that, the animals, we were in an area where there were no ongoing fires. We saw some areas that had been burned, but mostly it was just dry where we were, and the animals were there and the birds were there, and you just hope that they get one hell of a wet season coming up. And even our last night there, Porto Joffre, which is the big town everybody kind of goes to look for jaguars, got a huge rainfall, and it actually put out some of the fires, I gathered, down in that area, which was huge. They needed the rain and they needed those fires to stop. And so at least in that area, they got a little bit of a respite, it sounds like. But I always say, I think it's the closest you can get to a safari experience in South America. A lot of what you do is in driving around on roads, popping out, looking at, mammals and big congregations of water birds like egrets and wood storks and jabberoos. Jabberoos are all over the place, and they're spectacular, and they're paired up, and they're nesting in some cases. And in other cases, you just get big groups of them at pools. There's savanna hawks and black-collared hawks all around, and lesser yellow-headed vultures, and the odd bat falcon and laughing falcon. The front half of the book is really well represented down there. I've never seen any place so full of crassids, of guans and curassows. piping guans. Like there was one day we must have had over 100 piping guans. There was chachalacas became sort of a butt of a joke amongst our group. They were so loud, and curassows were not so loud, but really, cool, showy birds running around like turkeys everywhere. There was guans, just an incredible number of crassids. Not, I would say, the most diverse, although, decent diversity, but just large numbers of them. And that was really cool. And the mammals were great. There's 4 kinds of deer. There's not many places you can go and see 4 species of deer, I don't think. Of course, the big thing was jaguar. And, that is a big one for me. I like cats, I think, as everybody knows. And I will say our first jaguar experience was not probably how one would draw it up exactly. We arrived in the afternoon, and so people had been out. The rivers there are pretty well traveled by people looking for jaguars. Some of whom are birders, but most of whom are just people looking for jaguars. And we actually stayed on a boat in the Cuyaba River there, which is a little bit unusual. Some groups do it, but most stay in Porto Joffre. And we got to where there was a known sighting of a female jaguar with a youngster, with a little cub, which was pretty damn cute. It was cuter than the Pope Mobile, I dare say. And
thought you were going to say cuter than my puppy, but
I'm not sure anything could be cuter than Thomas. Not sure that's possible. But it was kind of like obscured, and I want to say there was like 30 boats surrounding it, and it was difficult to get to a point where you could see those animals. But later, we found a couple other jaguars, including one on our own that we were just by ourselves with our group alone enjoying, which was awesome. The giant river otter show there is unlike anything I've seen. They're like these little motorcycle gangs that just kind of roam, the rivers. And I've got a recording. Maybe we can even throw it on, sort of naturally adventurous style at the end of this episode that my co-guide Carlos Gassoni recorded of this group of 9 giant river otters, and they're just plowing down the river, sort of steadily going, just taking fish the whole way and fighting over fish, squabbling at each other, sitting around, making a racket, going up on the bank, scent marking. Eventually, we actually left them, went downriver a little bit, and found a neotropical river otter, which is actually much smaller, harder to see a lot of the time, and more solitary. And so we at first thought it was a river otter by itself, and then or a giant river and river otter, and then we realized it was a neotropical river otter. And we were watching him, and then we could hear the group of 9 giant river otters coming downriver towards this. We're riding around by boat, and we're like, how's this going to work out? Because that's 9 really big, kind of like the giant river otters almost remind me of like the African wild dogs. They're kind of like really aggressive, loud, like they have there's a lot going on there. They're kind of voracious hunters. They never stop eating. And I was like, this poor neotropical river otter is all by itself. And he's just sitting here. We want to be like, go dude, get out of here. You got to go. And eventually he stopped munching on the fish that he was munching on when the giant river otters got close. And we saw him kind of freeze, look up river, and then he was lying on his back in the water and just sort of slowly periscope down into the water. And I was like, man, he totally looks like that meme of Homer Simpson, backing into the hedge, where he just sort of goes whoop, he disappears into the hedge. So anyway, that was pretty cool. We saw a whole bunch of birds. I don't want to go on too long, but it is a really thrilling area. We're going to do the trip again next year. Phil Shawn is going to guide it for Hillstar. And if you're looking for an African safari that is in South America, this one's pretty great. I can't wait to do it again. We're going to do more in Brazil. And it was a real thrill. It was a ton of fun. The food is fabulous. The food is great everywhere you go. Really fun.
Do you have cooks on the boat and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Yeah, the boats are quite comfortable. They almost kind of remind you of like those old Mississippi riverboat style. You know, they don't have like the big kind of, flapper thing at the back, propeller.
Flapper thing. I'm sure that's
not
got
like a propeller, but
it's probably got a different name.
yeah,
than
but
a
it's not a
flapper
propeller.
thing.
Like, what is it? Big flapper propeller?
Yeah, the water wheel. I don't know.
I don't know what it is. You're right. I suspect it's not flapper, but
Yeah.
but it was quite comfortable, and the food was great, and the caipirinhas were delectable, I dare say.
Well, hey, back to the fire. I'm thinking when I used to do trips in Bolivia, there was always a smoke season, big time smoke season, and sometimes it was super bad. And I don't remember what time of the year. Maybe it was this time of the year, but it was totally every year sort of expected. So that is not the case in the Pantanal. Or is this sort of something that's always happened and it's at a higher volume? Or is it like they usually don't have fires and then they're now getting them? Because these fires in Bolivia it was all crops and stuff. They just burn everything. And it was all, sometimes it would close the airport, in Santa Cruz.
Yeah, I don't know exactly, but the Pantanal, I think like over 95% of it or something is privately owned. A vast amount of it is in private ranches where they have sort of these, fazendas, these posadas, kind of big guest houses on these ranches. And there's a lot of cattle down there. So it may be that they do some burning, but from what I understand, elsewhere in Brazil I think it was kind of outside of the Pantanal where some of these fires were kind of being encouraged from a political perspective. And I don't know if they typically do any regular burning in the Pantanal. I would have to look at that and see. But certainly there was nothing on the scale of the current drought there or the fires. Everybody there that I spoke to was like, this is the peak of the dry season, but nobody has ever seen it this dry. And apparently it's been progressively drier the past couple of years. So,
and you know that the Sahara and the Sahel are actually flooding right now.
I did hear that. Yeah.
So
like,
maybe it's, the water that should be in Brazil is over in the Sahara.
Yeah.
So it's, apparently, and even up into Morocco, all the way up in sort of the entire North African region is like really wet.
It's very strange. Things are going to change. They're already changing. Yeah.
Well, since this was your first time in Brazil, fires aside, was there anything that surprised you that was different than you expected, or what stood out to you in those regards?
Yeah, I think I didn't really know what to expect of the birding. So much of my time has been spent in the Andes or in Patagonia. I did realize I've spent a lot of time in what I call kind of cowboy country in South America. I've probably spent more time like, in the Llanos and the Pampas and now the Pantanal. But the birding, I don't want to say it's easy, but in a way it is. Like, the Atlantic forest after the Pantanal really was like a safari. The Atlantic forest portion, which we did after at Itatiaia National Park, was really much more birding focused, and equally thrilling. There weren't as many mammals there. You're up at about I think we were close to 4,000 feet or something there. But both places, a lot of the birds just kind of fall in your lap. It feels like. The birding is really satisfying because you're kind of constantly getting new stuff while still getting to know a lot of the older, not older, but the birds you saw the first couple days. So it is really a satisfying kind of birding. And as everybody knows, I love just about every kind of birding there is, but I I guess I didn't. This was different in sort of how steady the diet of new birds was and how presentable they were for us. Like there weren't many birds. Often in the Andes, there's a percentage of birds. I don't know if it's 10 or 15% or something that are impossible to have as sort of shared birds by everybody in the group. That percentage of birds was much lower on both parts of this trip that we just did. The birds really presented well, and some of our walks in the cloud forests in Itatiaia was just so birdy. A lot of places I've been in cloud forest, you go through these long gaps, maybe half hour, 40 minutes, where you encounter maybe zero birds. You maybe even, it can be really thin sometimes. And it's not that the place isn't great or bird rich. It's just kind of, I think, the habits of the birds that are there. In the Atlantic forest, man, it was birdy. And something like a fifth of the birds we were seeing were endemic. So that's a really high percentage. And so it was just very fun. I didn't know what to expect, but I guess I found, at risk of sounding like a neophyte and maybe oversimplifying things, I found the birding to be easy in a way that was really fun. I guess I would say that. Also, we probably used my thermal scope in the cloud forest more than I've ever used it during the day before, and found a couple really like high leverage things, I would say, like a roosting sloth on the other side of this valley. It was just like, it looked like a little basketball kind of, glowing in the distance. And I was like, what's that? And I put it in the scope and I was like, oh my God, it's a sloth, That was pretty awesome. And it was fun at one spot too. My thermal actually just died, ran out of juice. And my buddy Jason Wexstein, I was like, Jason, this spot looks like a great place for a roosting owl. And he had a thermal. And he's like, there's something glowing up here. And I'm like, okay. And we're looking at it and it looks like it's the size of a baseball or something, and I'm like, God, what's this going to be, And,
Was it just
finally I'm like, and finally I realized it's the head of a much larger owl. And it's just the head that's giving off heat. Everything else looks cold in the thermal. So I didn't see the tail. I wasn't seeing the body, just the head. And it was a tawny-browed owl, which, same genus as spectacled owl, pulsatrix, which is one of my favorite genus names. And those birds have amazing sounds. And we had looked for one the prior night and not seen it. So then to find it this way was pretty awesome. So those are a couple surprising fun things.
That's really cool. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I bet a lot of birders get thermals with the intention of owls being like one of their primary uses, but owls are so hard for that reason to see. They're so incredibly well insulated. But what made you start using them in the middle of the day? Did you just try it out and had luck and kept going?
Honestly, it was that I forgot I had it in my backpack, and we were looking for this antbird.
Yeah.
Yeah, this white-bibbed antbird.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, man, if I only had my thermal right now, I could probably spot this thing. And I was like, oh, man, I do have my thermal. And
Great.
so I pulled it out and spotted the antbird like straight away.
Yeah.
And then Jason was like, yeah, we got to try this a bit more often. And it ended up working really well. Yeah.
I remember with Mitch Leisinger, and we were looking for one of the crazy snipe up in the middle, up in the mountains. And he's like, they're probably right in here. If we had a thermal scope, we'd find it sitting in the grass. And I was like, that always stuck with me, like, use in day.
Yeah.
Note to use in day.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't have like more helpful in the day with a group situation.
Yeah.
It's
just to spot the bird, and then you can use daylight to actually see it.
Yeah. I had the same thing happen with the fruit eater in Colombia, where we were spending like 10 minutes. The thing's calling and calling, and you're like, it has to be visible. But in the green canopy, that green and yellow bird just, disappears. And even when it's moving. And pull out the thermal, and you're like, oh, yep, there it is.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Hmm.
That's how I saw my first tapaculo, was in the thermal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they are helpful for that.
Speaking of tapaculos, were you in the range of a bird I've only seen once in my life, but it was a really cool bird and situation? It was a spotted bamboo wren.
We were in the range, spotted bamboo wren. No, I was thinking bamboo tyrant. No.
Spotted bamboo wren. That's you were too far north,
Yeah.
I guess.
Itatiaia is in southern part of the Atlantic forest.
So then it must, I mean, because it's in the Atlantic forest, but in the south part, like Iguazu.
And
all that.
No, we did not connect with that. Maybe, I'm not sure why.
It's a cool little bird that looks like nothing on earth, yet it's a tapaculo. And it doesn't look like one.
Yeah, I just Googled this and saw it was one word and realized it's not a wren.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's got little circles on its tail, like a little weird ocelli. And it's little, and it hangs out in bamboo, like a real thick bamboo. Chusquea or chuskia, as some people call it, chusquea.
And there's like 3 kinds of native bamboo, genera of bamboo there. It does look like, Al, we are a little far north for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a
There's
cool bird.
A very few registers nearby, looks like. Registers.
You sound like a Spanish speaker.
Yeah, exactly.
Registros, muchos registros.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't see that. But I thought you were going to go, like, we had slaty bristlefront beautifully. That was a cool tapaculo.
Yeah, I saw that I've only birded like 2 days in that part of Brazil, or any part of Brazil, but yeah, saw that slaty bristlefront. That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thing. But it is black, like a kind of regular tapaculo. It's just sort of stretched out, and then you stick a little mop on the head.
Yeah, you pulled either end and stuck a mop on the end. Yeah.
It's like a mop.
Yeah, I really love the Atlantic forest birding. We're looking forward to kind of doing more of that. That's gonna be fun. Josh Coville's down there right now. Ran into him. We had dinner together. That was pretty fun in Sao Paulo.
Yeah. Talk about a small world.
Yeah. That was awesome. And he's in the middle of like a 3-week trip where he's going to go around, clean up. He was dining with maned wolves just the other night. Pretty jealous about that.
Yeah. That's a dream mammal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. You want to put your trip report in the show notes?
Yes. Yeah, we'll do.
We'll share that too.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that was Brazil, but I encourage folks to take a look at the hillstarnature.com and check out our site, our trips coming up to Brazil. We're going to be doing more there. It's a lot of fun.
Brazil. You could run out of places in Brazil. It's a very small country.
It is enormous. Yeah. It's like... Yeah, there's a lot to do there. If one is so inclined, you could easily, and there are several folks we know basically devoted a lifetime to just peeling back the layers in Brazil.
No, I was with my friend Bennett Hennessy, who's he's works on a lot of the conservation issues in Brazil for ABC, American Bird Conservancy, and he was hanging around. He was here in town, so we were hanging around together, did a pelagic and all that. And he was suggesting putting together a tour of some of the reserves and conservation areas in Brazil. I thought that would be a really great idea. And many of them in sort of drier areas, south of not the Amazon, but in those sort of that dry
Cerrado or.
Yeah, I mean, there's multiple habitats that sort of connect to sort of dry belt that separates the Atlantic forest from the Amazonian forest. That's why you get so much endemism in the Atlantic forest, because it's separated from everything else.
Yeah, the Cerrado and the Caatinga, or I'm mispronouncing. I think it's like Caatinga, or I'm not saying it right, but yeah.
Yeah, and then what's weird too is in the South, there used to be connections through the rivers. So the Southern Atlantic forest used to connect to the Yungas forest of the Andes, and there's a lot of species that are shared. But then those river habitats have pulled back, and there's no gene flow anymore. And then some of the Atlantic forest birds are related to the birds in the Amazon, but often when you do these phylogenies, the Atlantic forest birds are the oldest lines. It's like that kind of forest probably was more widespread at one point, and it retreated. Not every group, but I do remember that's happened in multiple things I've read over the years. It's a really interesting part of the world that most people don't even know about, right? Birders know the Amazon, they know the Andean forest, but they have no idea about this separate tropical forest that's sitting there, shared by Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay.
That was one thing that was also kind of surprising, was the number of birds that I recognized even from like Central America that get down that far that are probably something different, like plain ant vireo. And I forget, there's a handful of things. I was like, man, that thing is really widespread between here and like Mexico,
right, like antenagers and things.
We didn't see sharp bill, but that's got a funny distribution anyway, but those things are kind of all over. But it's like sepia-capped flycatcher. I'm trying to remember. There was a handful of things where I was like, man, having spent a lot of time in northern Argentina, but not Iguazu, there was a lot of stuff that I recognized in the Chaco that was, that I'd seen in the Chaco that was in the Pantanal, and then a number of things in the Atlantic forest that I'd seen elsewhere much further north. So yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, well, anything else, guys? We're coming up on our time here. Alvaro, anything else you want the good people to know before we sign off for the time being?
I don't have time to summarize pelagics, but there's more next week. So I think I'm almost thinking I should do a big old paper summary of what we saw this year, and eventually kind of summarize the summary for folks on the podcast, because it's been pretty much like the best season ever, I think.
Wow.
It's like just incredible in so many ways.
How many trips have you done this year so far?
25 or something like that.
Wow.
I don't know.
Not that you're counting.
Yeah.
That's crazy. I mean, that is really something.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But there's people that want to keep on going out, and this is a season where we have a lot of people visiting from outside of the state. So that's really interesting. Earlier in the season, it's all locals, and then, it morphs into, people from outside of the country sometimes even too. So that's been neat. But yeah, otherwise, gosh, I think I should start talking to people about my Antarctica trip end of next year, and so look for that, full on South Georgia, and going to the Malvinas, Falkland Islands, Peninsular Antarctica, and check it out, alvarosadventures.com.
Right on. And what about you, Molly Brown?
Well, you know what? I have dreamed the last 4 nights in a row about Cuba and Cuba tours. And sometimes I'm stressed that I missed my flight to get there. But other times I'm just dreaming about birding in Cuba. So I think that's what I'll say is folks should check out the Cuba trips that I'm leading on Alvaro's Adventures. Is there room in December?
I think there is actually. Cool. And then, we're going to try and do one in spring too, right? So yeah, that's on there.
Awesome.
So
I'll check that out.
Yes. Yeah. And Cuba is always fun.
Oh yes, it is. Can't wait.
Excellent. Well, thanks everybody for listening. Molly, Al, I will see you later. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hey folks, Molly coming to you from the editing side, not with my normal mic, but we have this track of Giant River Otter and we are going to close out with it, so enjoy.